I refuse to become as strong as my African mothers. That is the strength I don't want to be part of. The strength of my African mothers back home in Africa, I don't want to be part of it. And my reasons are going to surprise you, maybe, but I think they're well justified. The African mother or the African woman back home, they go through a lot within their matrimonial house, okay? It's just the suffering. The suffering is unbelievable. The strength that is expected of them is just something I don't want to be part of. And I refuse to become like them. I refuse to identify with the strength of my African mother. I think I am weak when it comes to their strength. I cannot survive that type of marriage. I cannot survive that type of expectation. I just cannot fulfill that expectation. Am I less than an African woman? In that regard, I would say yes. I don't want to identify with the strength of that, because the African woman has been identified to be the strongest on this planet, and that strength comes from suffering. Why should I suffer like my mothers? I don't want to be part of that. No, marriage should be fun. It shouldn't stem from. Well, the fun of a marriage shouldn't stem from the suffering of the woman. In Africa, the more the woman suffers within her marriage, the more she is glorified as a good woman, good, strong woman. Oh my God, do you know what she's been through? That woman suffered for so many years with her husband. Why does the woman have to do the suffering? Why are the sacrifices of the African men? I want to know that, because when the African woman gets married, there's a lot that she's going to undertake. It's unbelievable. This is the woman that is going to provide for the whole family if the husband is not working. And yet that man of hers is cheating or impregnating every woman in town. And guess what? He will expect her to raise 1 or 2 or 3 of his kids that he had outside of his marriage. Do you think I, Rose, can survive that? I don't think so. I am weak. I don't want to be part of the strength of my mothers, meaning the African woman. My African mothers, you guys are too strong to a point where I cannot identify with that. I don't want to acknowledge that. Even in my wildest dream, I cannot. No. There's a reason why I'm in America. Maybe because mentally, even when I was in Africa, I never aligned with that type of strength. And I never could have survived it. I have a feeling that I don't know what will become of me if I was in Africa. Someone would say, well, the reason why you're thinking this differently is because you are not there. But the problem is I wasn't born in the US. I was born in Africa. Okay, I grew up, most of my life in Africa. I've lived in Africa, then I've lived in the US. I mean, longer in Africa than I've lived in the US. So therefore, when I was there, I never identified with the culture of a woman suffering. That's the culture I never identified with. Okay, I like being an African woman, but I don't like the suffering that comes or that is attached, or the level that the African woman is attached with. And the strength of the African woman stems from suffering. I don't want to be part of that. I am weak. I cannot be that strong. The African woman is expected to stay within a marriage that isn't good for her. The African woman is expected to stay in an arranged marriage where she has no love for the man, but she has to stay there because her parents decided this man for her. They chose this man for her. Her parents decided that this is the man that is good for her. Her parents chose the man that they believe is good for her without her input. Is this man good for her? That's the question. 9 out of 10, the man isn't good for her, but they still stay in that marriage for ages until they die. They sacrifice their being for the status quo, societal, the cultural code. Oh, it is my culture. When my parents choose a man for me, I'm supposed to be obedient. Obedient to what extent? Obedient to what type of obedience is that? That's why I say, I think I am weak. I cannot survive that. I'm sorry, I can't. Someone will say, well, you cannot survive that because you're part of the new generation. I will say maybe. Me being part of the new generation, definitely my mindset has changed. The new generation thinks like me. But if you are within that cultural boundaries, new generation or old generation, those cultural practice is imposed upon you. If you don't have a strong mindset like me, you cannot survive it. New generation or not. When they force you to marry someone you don't want, oh yeah, you're going to marry that man. That is the culture, right? Arranged marriages. Oh, we're choosing your husband because they think you cannot make a rational decision when they come to men. No, they're going to impose upon you. This is the man for you, my dear. What are you going to do? New generation, you want to think again? Yeah, the African culture is complex. The African cultural practices, expectation of the African woman is too demanding. I cannot fulfill those demands. I cannot survive it because it is a suffering that is detrimental to the African woman. Our African mothers are suffering in their marriages. Our African mothers are sacrificing too much. Our African mothers are giving everything just to stay in the marriage for the sake of their children. Those children, look at me, African mothers, they're going to grow older and live their own lives. You cannot sacrifice your precious life for that. Yeah, the African mother is not just a second-class citizen. I would say she is maybe a fourth-class citizen or a triple-class citizen in Africa because they expect less from her. The African woman have less power in Africa. Some do. Well, we have some African presidents out there, female presidents. Yeah, you cannot count more than 5. I'm sorry. That is the supremacy of the African men in Africa. A woman, you shouldn't say a word. Your husband is the commander and the chief and the executive. He is the man of the household. He is the only man who is expected to bring another woman in his matrimonial house. And you say nothing. That's why I say I think I'm weak. I'm sorry, I think I'm weak. I cannot survive it. I wouldn't dare survive it. Yeah, he is not expected to take it. Well, even though he is the main provider, but if he is not providing, I've seen most of my African mothers go to the market, sell whatever thing they have to sell, clothing, it can be anything. Come, feed the kid, give that man money, and guess what he would do with the money? Go to the bar, buy liquor, drink it, bang another woman, and come home with that disease and give it to his wife. And he still expect her to stay. He would jeopardize her life, and she still expected to stay with the man that made her sick. She has no say so. It's like forever. For better forward, for the African woman, is for worse forward and for worse forward. No matter how worse it gets, you need to keep moving in that marriage. Divorce is not acknowledged. In certain cultural practices, like in my country, if you leave your husband's house, your father is going to take you right back to him. It doesn't matter if whatever it is he does to you that you don't agree with, divorce is not an option. In certain cultural practice in my country, you cannot just divorce. If you're not strong-minded, you cannot just divorce. If you want to divorce your family, they're going to disown you. How strong are you? You need to have a different mindset to become an African woman. Not to become, but to live within the cultural expectation of the African woman. The new generation, there are some changes. The practice is a little bit different, but I believe it could be better. Okay, it could be better, but it's unfortunate because there, every man is expected to cheat because that's male nature. Cheat, not to hide and cheat. They're expected to blatantly cheat in your face, my dear, because most of them are the providers. The African woman, I say, she's not just a second-class citizen or a third class. She is at the bottom of the barrel. They have placed the African woman in Africa at the bottom of the barrel. It's sad to see. She is at the mercy of her husband. If she isn't, and the husband is not providing due to some circumstantial, event, she is going to be providing for that entire family, including the husband family at time. The husband family of the African woman, the in-laws, oh, they are worse than you can imagine. When they get on her throat, you feel sorry for her. They will request that they want to give their brother another wife because you are not providing for them. You think I have that strength? No, I don't. You trust me with that type of practice and you think I will survive that? I'm trying to be serious, but I can't keep a straight face. That's how serious this conversation is. You think I can survive that? I can't. That's how come I say I refuse to become as strong as my African mothers. I cannot. You guys have defeated me in those practices. I cannot do it. You expect me to take care of my in-laws because I'm fearful they're going to bring another woman and give it to my husband because my husband doesn't have a say-so. That's how the African man is in certain African cultural practice. His family have the power. You, the woman that is married, you have no power, no say-so. Yeah. And when the family come over, oh, you better behave yourself. You better. Absolute respect. They better not catch you, misbehaving. Because you think your husband loves you. You think he does. You think so? They are going to prove to you otherwise. The love of the African man towards his African woman, for me, I question that. Because I will say, if you love your wife, no one should interfere. No one should. No bastard from the surrounding family should interfere in your decision making. But it's unfortunate. The cultural practice in Africa is so strong. The culture is so powerful. It's hard to defeat it. And that culture makes us African. But I'm here to say, I don't want that. I prefer to take the good side of what I consider to be good within my own culture and dump the one I don't align with because I am too weak to survive in that environment. I am the woman that cannot survive that. It's going to take time for the new generation to smell the coffee and say no to practices like that. In the African culture, because the African man makes most of the decision, there are certain cultural practice that is so unfair to women to a point where they don't even want a woman to experience full pleasure. I don't want to be too vulgar. I don't want to be vulgar. But there are certain practices within my culture, my African continent. They don't want a woman. Fear of her being promiscuous. There are certain practices. It's too vulgar for this conversation. But they don't want her to experience what orgasm is. Well, someone will say, well, most women fake orgasm anyway. You don't know what I'm talking about. If you don't know, I'd rather you ask me. Fear of the African woman becoming promiscuous. The African men have decided to make decision on behalf of the African woman. They've made sure that certain mothers, my African mothers, can never experience what full pleasure is. But the man experiences what pleasure is every time he sleeps with them. Do you understand me? Okay. I'm not getting deep, right? I'll get deeper. If I use that word that I want to use, I don't think it's friendly. But the African men have made sure that most African mothers of ours cannot experience full orgasm. It doesn't matter what it is. They can never experience that until they die. It has been stolen from them. Yeah. The female genitalia mutilation. Do you know what does that mean? Cutting the clitoris of a woman because they don't want you to experience orgasm. Yeah. That practice is in my country. Yeah. The suffering of the African mother is in multiple African countries, by the way. The African genitalia mutilation of a female is rampant in multiple African countries. It is still a practice in my country. And someone will say, well, Rose, you're against your culture. Against my culture. It's not about being against my culture. I am trying to defend the African woman and make sure that practices like that shouldn't see a light in the day. Because it's not fair to those mothers. But the worst part of it is that those mothers do not know what they've done to them. Because you don't miss what you never experienced. You know what I mean? Yeah. And you want to ask me why, when it comes to childbearing, most African mothers lose their lives? I am not strong as my African mothers. I can never be strong as them. I just cannot. I don't have that in me. I cannot survive it. Because the practices is so embedded in them. If you want to show them a different avenue, the African mother will say, no, this is the only way I know how. Do you understand? This is the only way I know how. I'm like, okay. You cannot teach them. You cannot convince them. But the new generation, there are certain NGOs out there that are fighting against those practices, trying to raise awareness. And in the long run, let's see, maybe I can have an NGO, okay, non-profit organization, and try to fight against practices like that, because there are certain definitely circumstances. The medical implication of practices like that is unknown to them, but it's definitely detrimental. It leads to a lot of disease processes that is untold or unknown. Okay, so one day, hopefully, the African mother is so strong to a point where I am weakened when I face her. I don't want to share her bargain. I want to see if I can advocate for her, because I cannot be that strong. No. Maybe I'm part of the new generation. Yeah. They are in their marriages unhappy, but unable to leave, because leaving that marriage is not an option. They are living in prison. They're imprisoned by their culture. They cannot see beyond that. It's so sad. And it's not about intellect, by the way. Though most of them are illiterate, especially the one in the villages. I get it. But even the African mothers, that are in the capital city, they went to school, they're still imprisoned by the cultural practices. So it's not about who is educated or not, by the way. It doesn't make a difference. The culture is too powerful. They cannot escape it. They can just endure it. So I'm like, I cannot survive this. My African mothers, I have to surrender before you. Your strength is unbeatable. Your strength I cannot share. I don't want to align with. I don't want to be part of it. I am weakened, and I'm here to say I refuse to be as strong as you. Uncommon theories, uncommon answer. Again, my name is Rose, and I shall always remain the Rose that you know. Thank you.